All right, everybody, happy to be here. My name is Kåre Moberg. I work as a research leader at the Danish Foundation for Entrepreneurship. And together we are going to climb a small hill, I think we call it in Sweden, but maybe it's a mountain in Denmark. Let's do this together. All right, so I work at the Danish Foundation for Entrepreneurship, and we are a national center within entrepreneurship education. So we both assist and fund initiatives in entrepreneurship at all levels of education. So you're much welcome to contact maybe my colleagues. I work mostly with the research projects at the foundation, but we are working at all levels of education. So we're here for you to really develop entrepreneurship as a red thread throughout the all education in the Danish educational system. Been working with this since 2007, and at the foundation I've been since 2011. Did a PhD thesis at CBS about the impact of entrepreneurship education. So I'm actually a numbers guy. I typically look at big data sets, do a lot of statistics. This is how we view entrepreneurship education at the Danish Foundation. This is the Danish taxonomy for entrepreneurship education, so to speak. We look at 4 different areas and dimensions that we want to interconnect and interplay within the core curricula in order to create entrepreneurial education for your students. This is creativity, action and agency, it's personal attitude, and the Danish part is the outward orientation. This is typically lacking in the other frameworks around the world, at the European level and so on. So this is what we have added with our dannelse concept, so to speak. But it's very important. But since I was asked to do this a bit more TED Talkish, I will start to propose or claim that I view entrepreneurship education similar to learning how to ride a bike. So, when learning how to ride a bike, there is a lot of things we need to learn. There's a lot of skills and competences. There's a lot of things going on. And as parents, we really want our children to understand the concept of traffic and to be safe and so on. So there's a lot of anxiety about it. It's something that is difficult to get them to learn and to as parents, be safe about giving the control over to the children. Similar to entrepreneurship education, I would say that it's typical that we start with the fundamentals. We start with the basics. We start with a tricycle, learning how to use the pedals, learning how to steer, look in front of us, avoid small obstacles. What I question is that we continue to develop the same skills later on. This is so it has been done for many years when it comes to learning how to ride a bike. You put these support wheels on the bicycle, and there's often the metaphor that we as teachers, we are the support wheels. And to me that's a bit strange because they just learn the same skills when doing this. The last 10 years or so we have had other efficient ways how to train balance and other skills that are really important to entrepreneurship. And in Danish it's called a løbecykel. In English I think it's a balancing bike. You train so many other skills that are important for learning how to ride a bike in the end. You train independence, you learn how to navigate traffic more independently, more autonomously, and you train your balance, which is really important if you in the end will learn how to ride a bike. But tests in the school system typically looks like this, because it's so important that we are able to measure, assess, compare. So it's not strange that educators in the educational system continue with the support wheels rather than switching to focusing on other skills that are so important if we want to become independent and competent citizens. I would like to see other types of tests. We are a bit more creative about it, and it's something I've been working a lot with the latest years. I've been participating in many projects in regards to competences, assessments, evaluation, and those methods. we have been discussing a lot what type of competences that are important to entrepreneurship education. And to me, I find it very nice that we in 2016 actually came up with a framework in the EU called Entrepreneurship, which had been a process where practitioners and researchers and educators came together to discuss what do we actually mean with this entrepreneurial competences. Because if it is one of the 8 key competences that each European citizen should learn, we need to know what it is. And they came up with 15 competences. So they are divided over 3 areas, so you can overview them. But as an educator, I find it quite problematic to fit all these competences into the system. I prefer systems that are both very specific, but also a bit more loose around the edges. So this is a model that came just a couple of years ago, which I enjoy from a pedagogical standpoint. It's called the Chalmers Entrepreneurship School Diamond. Here they view agency and novelty as very important to be able to become entrepreneurial, as well as learning and creating value for others. So in their view, it's a balancing act. You stand on a balancing board trying to balance all these aspects at the same time in order to become entrepreneurial and to get entrepreneurship into your classrooms. But I also like these classical models. I think you recognize the Bloom's taxonomy, even it's the updated version by Anderson and all in 2001. And if we take the bicycling metaphor, it's over here where the skills that you want to learn are focused. And in entrepreneurship education, it's typically a bit broader. We go up to the evaluate and create, but we are really much around the procedural skills that we want to learn. And lately, we have been trying to push it more and more towards the higher goals, creation and valuation. A lot of entrepreneurship theories and methods is about creating, evaluating, iterating, going back and forth between these stages. So my question is that even though I do like this framework, Entrecomp, I wonder whether or not it's feasible to fit all these competences as learning goals, or even some of them. Are these competences structured in a way that they fit the school system, the education system, to be formulated as learning goals, or are they rather the byproduct of other more overarching, more precise learning goals, as well as the teaching methods that we use? Because as a statistician and evaluator, I often look at these competences, but I can't find them really as being visualized in the educational programs, but they still learn a lot of these competences. So to go back to Bloom, I think it's important to recognize that we cannot do everything. We need to focus on what's feasible with the group we are working with a given time that we have. And as educators, I'm sure you understand it, but as policymakers, they don't really understand it. And the researchers also keep on pushing that this will solve everything and we will do everything, and they will start create value and become motivated and inspired and changing the world, creating social value, sustainability value, environmental value, and so on. But we have the time we have, and we need to do it as efficiently as possible. And the students need to perceive that this is something that's feasible, not just aspirational as with the Entrecomp framework. And I would say that they should be possible to assess. To me, that's very important, for otherwise you cannot really understand how you progress, how you improve in these competences. And the feedback is very important. You should be able to provide specific feedback, because when it comes to entrepreneurial competences, they are often perceived as mindsets and personal traits. And it's hard to provide feedback that doesn't become very personal for the students, if it's that case. So I've been struggling with translating it into more specific value natural learning goals, which can be evaluated with clear standards. And it's tough. So Starting off, I would say that many of these competences that we want to foster, they come fairly natural when we start working with entrepreneurial methods. And these methods that I will present here, is this my glass? It's not right. I think it's over there. It's Corona time, thank you. Are actually similar to the these teaching methods are similar to the teaching methods that you typically use when you want to get your students engaged, when you want to create engaging assignments. But these are the same that I see over and over again in entrepreneurship education. Authentic assignments, that you work with something real, that you work with real people, that you work with someone that thinks it matters what you do. Collaborative, this is what we are very good at in Denmark. Many different talents into play, and I think this is particularly important to your students, because it's not just the academic talent that should be put into play. That is not engaging, and that is not what happens in entrepreneurship education. And for many educators, once you start focusing on the other talents that your students have, you have to re-evaluate your students. You have to view them in a new way. Because academic talent, we are quite trained to spot and identify. But when we need to view the other talents that they have, we start to re-evaluate the students, and they get a new chance to show off themselves. And that's something that has been very motivating to people and students from non-academic backgrounds. So entrepreneurial education in my studies has typically demonstrated to be more motivating for this group of students than traditional education. And to give ownership of the process to the learners, that's very difficult, but it's very important. To have projects from A to Z, that's something that is very motivational and something we do a lot in entrepreneurship, from idea to product. And something that creates actual value for others is something that is really motivating. All of a sudden, when you work with your team, it's not just because you are going to have a good grade, it's also because someone is expecting you to be there to create value for them. And if you do not show up, then that value will not be created. Those senior citizens will sit there hanging, not having a lecture in how to use the iPad today. So it's something that has been demonstrated to be very motivational to many students. But I know it's not the barbecue season, but it's difficult when you barbecue to not open the lid. I'm not sure if this is a myth or not, but I think the meat becomes better, or the vegetable becomes better, if you do not open the lid all the time and let out all the warmth and smoke and so on. Keep the lid on and your food will turn out better. In the educational processes, that is a bit the same, but it's something that is very difficult. When it comes to entrepreneurial methods, a lot of the advances the latest 10 or 15 years has been to focus on how to get feedback very early on your ideas and concepts. Because we don't want to create all these products that no one wants. We don't want to develop under the radar. We want to get a more transparent process going where we have early iterations, do the test at an early stage, and get feedback on what we are creating is actually creating value to someone. So this is something that's very important in an educational process as well. The feedback should come early. We should be able to provide feedback on the learning process and not just let them loose or have them being under the lid doing their entrepreneurial projects, because it's not working for everyone. So we need to capture them early and provide feedback and see how it's going for them. And in order to do this, it needs to be clear what the learning goals are, because otherwise we cannot reach these gold standards where they develop this self-monitoring ability, where they themselves see how the learning is progressing. And that's, is the gold standard. If we get that, we're good. But then we need to have really clear learning goals so they can assess it themselves. So, evaluation of learning goals. I think the two first are fairly, we know those. But I would like to focus on this in regards to the timing of the feedback, when it comes, that we get it early in the process, that they are able to act on it, not just by the end of the process when they've gotten their grade. Then then they will not do anything. The quality of the feedback, how we can be smart about it, how we can use our peers and other teachers as well as the students to provide this feedback, and how the students respond to the feedback. I mean, if they don't do it, why do we do it? So, quality of feedback, it helps to clarify good performance, facilitates development of reflection and self-assessment, delivers high quality information, encourage teacher and peer dialogue. That's something that's often missed, that we don't take that chance to get the dialogue going between the students in regards to the feedback, and it's something I've been focusing a lot on. Positive and motivational beliefs of self-esteem. This is difficult, especially when you work with your students providing feedback. This is an aspect that typically are missed out, because if they are graded on giving feedback, they want to demonstrate to the educators that they can provide sharp feedback. But an aspect that is really important that we all know is when we provide feedback that is too negative, then they will just become depressed and don't act on it. So this motivational aspect is really key to focus on. Closing the gap, I mean, this is what I've been talking about. When we have clear learning goals with clear standards, we will be able to demonstrate what is lacking in regards to the progression of the skills and the knowledge. And we will also like information that makes us better educators, that provide us information about how to improve. So that is something that is important to build into the feedback that we want to get. And descriptive, precise, rather than evaluative and vague. This is so important in entrepreneurship, because the competences that I've been demonstrating are typically fairly vague, and it's very easy to start becoming evaluative about you do not have an entrepreneurial mindset, your personality does not fit, and so on. And that have no place in the educational system. So in my workshop, we will continue to work with learning goals, because I like it, evaluation methods, and how we can turn a feedback assignment into a graded evaluation. So how to actually use this in a way that we will be able to give a grade to our students. So to me, it's a win-win, because it's something that is difficult to get included in entrepreneurship education. For those who do not come to my session, you're welcome to contact me. This is my email. I would be happy to continue the dialogue with you. And I would just like to end with a quote here, that students may well escape from poor teaching, but if the evaluation is bad, they are trapped. So think about that. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you in the workshop.